If we're going to talk about wokeness in Masters of the Universe Revelations, then we're going to have to talk about wokeness in other media and how poorly it has been portrayed recently. Yay! It's gotten to a point where big companies are artificially inserting woke themes into their movies just to present themselves as aware and in it for the new generation. There are literally too many examples of this phenomenon, but I believe it's Mr. Grease in that one. Here, the character of Kate Kane is totally defined by her sexuality, to the point where the creators actually scrap everything original about the character from the source material. Even her appearance is made more stereotypically lesbian, with the addition of the leather jacket, the shorter hair, and just a more masculine aesthetic in general. The problem here is not necessarily the blatant tokenism of Kate Kane, but the fact that the character just isn't developed beyond that initial concept. To elaborate, because Kate Kane is only the token lesbian and hence is not treated like a character with flaws, arcs, or anything that a character needs to be interesting. You can really apply this phenomenon to a lot of mainstream media. Before we go any further, I find it absolutely critical to address the criticism that it's the creator's choice to forcefully implement woke messages into what could be a good story is actually what ruins the stories. I must digress, because I deeply believe that phenomenons like blatant tokenism are a result of one thing and one thing only: bad writing. I shouldn't have to say this, but one can write a well-written story that actively celebrates its diversity like Fargo, South Park, and BoJack Horseman, and not sacrifices the story integrity for forced wokeness. It's happened before, and it should be happening in better media with better writing. Which brings us to Masters of the Universe Revelations, so that does have some potential, but is weighed down by one single aspect that bleeds across the entire show: Teeler's characterization. If Kate Kane's development is equivalent to trash, then Teeler's development is equivalent to a dumpster fire. So much of her character feels so mishandled and amateur that it's almost overwhelming to cover in one essay. This is clear even during her introduction, as we are told that she's It should go without saying that showing that your character is a badass is much better than having it explained to the audience directly. Now, as we move on, let's discuss the most controversial part of Teela's characterization. During the end of episode 1, He-Man dies along with all the magic in Eternia, meaning that most magical creatures, as well as the fabric of the universe, has been put in peril. To make matters worse, it is revealed to everyone that the now dead He-Man was in fact Prince Adam. This is where things get bad.
No. I am done with every one of you.
Teela!
You knew, didn't you?
We've lost our son.
And you never said anything, not even to him. Everybody I ever trusted since I was a child knew Adam was He-Man.
We've lost our son.
Enough of magic and the monsters it makes. Enough of the royal palace. And enough of Castle Grayskull to last me a lifetime.
We've lost our son.
I'm done looking out for the people who never told me the truth. He-Man is gone. Skeletor is gone. And now... so am I.
We've lost our son.
Here, Teela prioritizes her own emotions above the situation itself, believing herself to be some sort of victim in all this, despite the very real fact that the universe has been put in serious danger. Teela seemingly can't put aside her emotions for the sake of the goddamn universe, which isn't a logical decision that the audience can get behind. But worse, makes Teela seem selfish and unlikable. To make matters much worse, Teela adopts this grumpy and edgy attitude, which does make it harder to really support her character throughout the story. Her poor writing is furthered in the episode Land of the Dead. This episode starts out promising. The main villain Scarecrow has a great character design and animation, and a gimmick of a villain that can tap into your greatest fear, can allow for some super creative imagery, as well as some cool little character development. Halfway through this episode, I genuinely thought that the writers were trying to suggest that Teela's greatest fear was realizing that she was wrong for abandoning her home, this time of need. That in a moment of weakness, she let her emotions dictate her actions instead of doing what's right. That by pursuing this life as an honest bounty hunter, she had actively disgraced the memory of her friend Adam. But that didn't happen. Instead, she beat Scarecrow by,
I never have. But that doesn't mean it controls me. I own my power. Give me my peace. Fight them with your heavy special time. You do it too.
The show is simply structured around making Tila's attitudes, actions, and motivation as justified, not allowing her to have a moment of introspection or to view some of her actions as potentially wrong. She's right all the time, and hence has no flaws to overcome or arcs to complete or have her morality questioned, which is way more effective than having flawed characters who have to overcome their weaknesses. Ain't that right, Jodie? If only we had a female character-driven, understandable motivation, which allowed moments of introspection to reflect on her morality, and hence developed throughout the story. Yeah, I'm defending The Last of Us 2 now. Okay, hear me out. Abby has a well-defined motivation set up in the first game. Her skills and how she acquired them are visually communicated to the audience instead of told to us. She goes from an innocent girl to a violent killer, and then to someone who rediscovers their empathy and hence their humanity. The story makes all these moments feel earned and more importantly doesn't go out of its way to justify them, but to make them understandable from Abby's point of view. Abby is an extremely flawed character, and for the realization of this flaws, after it grows to be a better person. It's almost like she has an arc. That is how you write character. I don't know if the creators intentionally nerfed Tila's character to make her seem more empowering, but in the end it doesn't matter, because it's bad writing either way. The show also has a multitude of other problems, such as the trailer that highly suggests that He-Man will be front and center in the show even though he barely appears in it. The series itself seems to be too miserable in tone to be an adaptation of a TV show for kids, and the trailer does a much better job at capturing the goofy 80s tone than the TV show ever did. I wanted to like Masters of the Universe Revelation. I didn't watch the original, I just never really got into it, but I can tell, as a guy who just analyzes media, when it ever comes along, that it has some serious problems. And I try to look at these things not from a political perspective, from a writing perspective. I don't think it's necessarily wrong to look at things from a political perspective, because I think everything's getting a little political these days. Almost every piece of media is political in some way. But you can have a very political piece, but still have it be very poorly written. Likewise, you can have something that has great writing and still has great politics to it. Look at Watchmen. The original book has been described as one of the most liberal pieces of media of all time. I don't mind having strong, independent women in stories, and I don't think having them in the stories is what ruins them. If that's what you think ruins stories, well, I don't know what to tell you. But,